Breaking news! The first few days of training camp have already brought us drama, controversy, and some shocking developments that could completely change the course of this season. There's tension behind the scenes, unexpected injuries, and players fighting for their careers in ways we haven't seen in a long time. And here's the kicker. This could finally be the year we find out if the Dolphins are truly Super Bowl contenders or if Chris Grier's persistent mistakes are about to cost us everything again. The atmosphere at training camp is intense. Players are being pushed harder than ever, training in torrential rain, being punished for every mistake with brutal conditioning. And some of the biggest names on the roster are already making headlines for all the wrong reasons. There's a major overhaul happening on the offensive line, a scary injury that's making the entire team nervous, and a returning star who could become the leader the defense has been missing, or could become yet another distraction if things don't go their way. And here's what's getting everyone talking. Mike McDaniel seems determined to build a stronger, more aggressive version of this team, but will he actually succeed? With Chris Grier once again leaving him scrambling to fill crucial roster holes, there's no room for excuses this year. Tua Tagovailoa's window to prove he can lead this team to the Super Bowl is now, but with so many pieces in motion, one wrong move could derail this season before it even begins. I'm about to break down everything that happened in training camp, including who's excelling, who's falling apart, and why one key decision this week could define the entire season. But before I get into the details, like this if you're a true Miami Dolphins fan who's been through the heartbreaks, and leave this in the comments if you believe in this team. Go, Dolphins! We can make it to the Super Bowl. Now let's get straight into it because things are getting tense at camp. First off, the biggest and scariest story of the day, offensive lineman Baron Matos had to be rushed to a local medical facility after an injury on the final play of practice. The Dolphins communication staff confirmed he's in stable condition, but no further details have been given. This is serious, and while football is important, the health of the player comes first. All our best wishes to him, but this was a moment that sent shockwaves through the entire team. Moving to the football side, practice itself wasn't just about flashy plays, it was about grit. McDaniel made a statement by having the team practice outside in the pouring rain instead of staying inside where it was comfortable. This was deliberate. He's trying to toughen up a team that, for the past 2 years, has looked like a finely tuned sports car that breaks down the moment it hits a bump in the road. The timing and precision of this offense have been disrupted by physical defenses before, and McDaniel knows it. That's why extra conditioning was ordered after practice to punish sloppy mistakes, with Austin Jackson admitting the players are expected to self-correct. It's about time this team stopped looking like a track meet and started playing real, physical football. Speaking of Austin Jackson, there's a lot of talk about the offensive line, and it's not all good news. Liam Eichenberg is out 4 weeks. That's McDaniel's word, not mine. His weeks designation means we might not see him at the start of the season. This could open the door for newly signed Daniel Brunskill, a versatile lineman who McDaniel knows from San Francisco. Brunskill isn't flashy, but he's experienced and far more reliable than Eichenberg has ever been. If Brunskill locks down that 7th offensive lineman role, this could be an upgrade whether Grier likes it or not. But let's face it, this offensive line still has major question marks, and Chris Grier should have addressed this long ago instead of forcing McDaniel to piece things together. And let's talk about Kean Smith. The third-year player showed up to camp looking like a completely different guy, stronger and more NFL-ready than ever. The Dolphins are experimenting with him at both guard and tackle, and he might force his way into the rotation if he keeps developing. Meanwhile, rookie Patrick Paul is already turning heads, going one-on-one with Bradley Chubb in some intense battles that are making both players better. This kid might just be the long-term answer at left tackle. On the defensive side, there are some big stories too. Jordan Phillips showed off his wrestling background, looking dominant in drills, and that's exactly what this defense needs up front. But the name everyone's buzzing about is Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yes, he's back in Miami, and while he hasn't spoken to the media yet, teammates rave about his leadership. On the field, he's already acting like the quarterback of the secondary, communicating constantly with younger corners and safeties. This could be a game changer for a defense that's been searching for a true leader in the secondary. And let me tell you, if Minkah is locked in, this secondary could be scary good. But not all is perfect. Artie Burns left practice on crutches after getting tangled up with B.J. Adams. This is the risk with Burns, who hasn't been able to stay healthy for years. The Dolphins can't afford to rely on him, and if Grier thought this was enough to solve the cornerback depth issue, he was dead wrong. There's so much more to get into, including how McDaniel is trying to balance Tua Tagovailoa's mastery of the offense with the fact that he has so many new pieces around him. The chemistry between Tua and his receivers is still a work in progress, and that could make or break this season. But here's what I want to ask you. Do you believe this offensive line, even with Brunskill and Smith stepping up, is good enough to protect Tua all year? Or do you think Greer has once again left this team vulnerable? Let me know what you think, because we need to talk about this. And here's where things really get interesting, because this is not just about who's lining up in the trenches, it's about how this entire offense is going to function under pressure. Mike McDaniel talked a lot about the importance of communication between Tua Tagovailoa and his receivers, and you could sense the urgency in his words. This offense thrives on timing, precision, and chemistry. Every route, every cut, every throw has to be perfect. But here's the problem. There's almost zero continuity on this offensive line from last season, and Tua is working with new faces who are still learning the system. That's dangerous for a quarterback who needs to get the ball out quickly to avoid taking big hits. McDaniel even admitted that early camp is going to be unfulfilling from a results perspective. He doesn't care if the passes are incomplete right now. What matters to him is whether the players are correcting mistakes and building trust in the process. But the reality is, fans don't have patience for process anymore. We've been hearing the same excuse for years. Tua is entering a crucial season, and he doesn't have time to wait for these new guys to figure it out. You can't afford missed assignments when you're facing teams like Buffalo and Kansas City. One thing McDaniel emphasized was reading body language. He talked about how last season, Tua and Malik Washington built that connection where Tua could anticipate breaks just by seeing a little head nod at the top of the route. That's what he wants with these new receivers, but that takes weeks, sometimes months, to develop. And you have to wonder, will Tua even have that time if this offensive line crumbles again? Speaking of the line, the Brunskill signing might be the smartest thing Miami has done in weeks, but let's not sugarcoat it. This should have been handled months ago. Greer sat on his hands while other teams were locking up proven veterans, and now we're scrambling with injuries piling up before the pads are even on. Brunskill isn't a superstar, but at least he's versatile, experienced, and already familiar with McDaniel's system. If he can solidify the interior, maybe, just maybe, this unit can hold up long enough for Tua to do his thing. Kean Smith is another wild card. Physically, he looks ready to take a big step, and the coaching staff seems genuinely impressed. If he can translate that new frame into consistent play, he might push for serious snaps. But again, we've heard this before with Dolphins linemen, training camp heroes who disappear when real games start. Fans have every right to be skeptical until these guys show it on Sundays. And let's not ignore the defensive side, because if this team is going to make a serious run, the defense might have to carry them early. Minkah Fitzpatrick could be the key piece that changes everything. Watching him command the secondary, already taking on a leadership role, feels like the first time in years Miami has had someone in the backfield with true all-pro instincts. He's teaching, communicating, and already looking like the quarterback of this defense. If the young corners and safeties feed off his energy, this secondary could become one of the best in the league. But for that to happen, Minkah has to stay healthy and fully bought in, and while everyone insists he's all in, some fans still have lingering doubts given his history with Miami. The other defensive story worth keeping an eye on is Bradley Chubb's battles with Patrick Paul. Chubb looks locked in, and Paul is proving he belongs, even without pads. That's the kind of iron sharpens iron competition this team has desperately needed. Jordan Phillips, too, showed flashes of his old dominant self, using his wrestling background to control offensive linemen in drills. If this front seven plays to its potential, they can keep Miami in games even if the offense starts slow. But here's the real question, and it's one every Dolphins fan needs to think about. Is this team actually built to survive adversity, or are we once again one or two injuries away from watching the season collapse? The Dolphins are talking a big game about toughness, practicing in the rain, punishing mistakes with extra conditioning, but talk is cheap. So I want you to tell me in the comments right now, do you believe this Dolphins team is finally tough enough, both mentally and physically, to make a legitimate Super Bowl run? Or are we going to see the same old story when the pressure hits?